Good evening. Welcome. And at this time, I'd like to call to order the Monday, August 27th, 2025, scheduled City of Clemson Planning Commission Special Call Workshop on proposed PUD 000-461-2025, known as 201 Pine Street. The meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the City Clemson YouTube channel. As a reminder, for anybody that needs assisted listening devices, please see Kelly Roach, and we would be glad to have those for you and offer those to you. I'd like to remind everybody the Planning Commission is a volunteer committee appointed by City Council and serves as an advisory board in the planning and development of our city. We are not employees of the city. At this time, I'll introduce our commissioners that are here. Commissioner Cumby, Commissioner Yoder, Commissioner Crowley, and I'm Herb Tyler. I'm the chair. We do have a quorum, and so tonight also we have members from the BAR that we have asked to be here in this process. We found this to be very important, and I'd like to go through and introduce them now.
Pete Masco.
Pete Masco.
David Allison.
Andrew Neptune.
Todd Howard.
Nathan Shaw.
Christine Tedesco.
And we are grateful for you to be here. We're going to begin tonight with the purpose and overview of the Planning Commission's role and types of meetings and topics, so everybody's on the same page. For items brought before Planning Commission, such as a plan unit development, there's a workshop concept presentation that's first seen, which was done, and then there's an informal public meeting for input from the public, suggestions, feedback, concerns, and that has already been held, both of those. This is an optional workshop that we thought after everybody being here, and we've asked 53 group to go back and to take what they've heard and to come back tonight. And then it moves forward. As I said, I'd like to make sure everybody understands our purpose here tonight. Workshops like this, there are no public comment during this. It is an absolute workshop to figure out, but we're glad everybody's here to listen and to see what's going on. At this time, I'd like to, again, just remind everybody deserves honor, dignity, and respect. The world can have a lot of different views and opinions, but no matter who we are, we need to treat everybody with honor, dignity, and respect. And I know that's how everyone would want to be treated, and so that's how we need to treat everybody. The other thing, please don't put me in a bad position to have to point that out, to have somebody removed, because I don't like it. And I know we're going to be all good. So I'd like to introduce Commissioner Hyatt as well from the Planning Commission. And there is one other commissioner on their way. Said they're sorry that they're late. I would like to introduce from our administrative staff, our Assistant City Administrator and Director of Planning Department, Nathan Woods. I'd like to introduce our City Planner, Art Holbrooks, and I'd like to introduce our Zoning Administrator, Jacob Peabody, who is here with us as well. And we could never do this without Ms. Kelly Roach, who's our recording secretary here. At this time, Jacob, if you would come and outline and cover for the public what the responsibilities of the BAR are, because there may be people here who don't know.
Sure.
And if you could cover that, it'd be great. If you could come up so people on camera could hear you, it would be great.
So for a application, the Board of Architectural Review does not review the underlying zoning, things like height, those type of things. But what they do review are things like the building design, the articulation, the fenestration, exterior building materials, the color palettes that will be used, the buffer yard design, landscaping, hardscapes, outdoor amenities, lighting, tree removal and tree types, fence designs, retaining walls, if there's going to be murals, where they'd be appropriate to be located, how mechanical equipment will be screened, either on top of a roof, like with parapets, or by landscaping, how pedestrian linkages will work throughout the site, how parking circulation would work on the site, possible locations for public art, signage design, and all aspects of Article 11 of the zoning ordinance.
Okay, and hopefully everybody could hear that, and that helps in this process of how things happen. As we begin our session, and I will get right to it in a minute, but I wanted to apologize to make sure I committed at the last meeting. There was confusion on public comments. We had two things, LD Collective as well as 53 Group. We did say that we would send out and have those sorted. Did y'all get y'all's copy of the public comments? And I know LD Collective did. Apologize again, Karen, for us finding it in junk mail and getting that to you. And so I just wanted to make sure. So that was taken care of. That was a commitment we made. And just wanted to make sure that y'all did receive those and are able to take everything into consideration as you look through this. So now, we'll turn it over to start the workshop. Ask somebody from 53 Group to come in and just kind of introduce yourself, because the BAR's here for the first time and people who may not have been, and then we'll go from there.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Commissioners, and thank you to the BAR for coming out to meet with us today. I really appreciate all of your feedback. So I will start a little bit with what we heard from the public presentation we had on August 11th and talk about if there were questions that were asked and start answering some of those questions. And then I will turn it over to the architecture team to kind of represent the vision and the overall concept of the building to continue to get your feedback. But for us, I think coming out of last Monday, the feedback that we got, I think, was broken into really like 3 or 6 main topics. It was questions about traffic, questions about the impacts to infrastructure, questions about how we're going to connect to downtown campus, pedestrian safety, continue to improve pedestrian safety, questions about, what are the impacts to noise and trash, and then overall questions about how does this building fit into the neighborhood context, and what is the impact of this building, why are we doing what we're doing here. So we talked a little bit about traffic before, but just wanted to kind of repeat our commitment. We said we would retake traffic counts again in September. We did, just for everyone's context, we did the initial traffic study in April when school was in session, and took additional counts in May when we were asked to survey additional intersections that the city wanted surveyed in our traffic study. Overall, I think what was important to note is that the project itself really didn't have any perceivable impact. It was really negligible on overall traffic in this particular area, but we are super sensitive to the fact that there will be additional traffic here, and so we have proposed essentially like a right turn only. We're doing like a pork chop right out of our garage entry to force all traffic and really keep traffic down to Clemson and 93. We got additional questions about infrastructure, like how are we going to be improving the infrastructure around this particular site? So we are still working with the city and with our engineers to continue to evaluate if there's anything we can continue to do off-site to maybe offer some off-site improvements. But for right now, for this presentation, we're really focusing on what we can do to the area right around our site, to Pine, to Clemson, and to Hedgerow, but we'll continue to follow up on this as we work through it with the city and with our engineers. There were also questions about pedestrian safety, knowing that a lot of pedestrians are going to be walking on Clemson. So we are proposing improvements to the sidewalk, both on north and south side of Clemson Avenue. But overall, looking to make improvements with a lay-by lane, improved sidewalks to the sidewalks around the site to continue to improve pedestrian safety and the connections to downtown and to campus. Also got questions about, what's the impact of a building like this on the noise in the neighborhood. We heard concerns about, if there are, balconies facing the neighborhood, is that going to create a noise impact? Is that going to, or there going to be residents who are, keeping trash on their balcony, throwing trash down? And so we are sensitive to this, and while we do think our building is kind of acting as like the big buffer, the noise buffer to a lot of the noise that we've heard is a concern in Tiger Park, we did want the backside of our building to kind of turn inward, right, and look more toward the interior of the building, feel more like it was part of the interior courtyard. And so we're removing the balconies on the north side, on the hedgerow side, just kind of the where the facade and the building most closely interacts with the neighborhood. And then there were questions about, what does this building look like from other corners, other intersections? And so our architecture team will walk through it in a little bit more detail, but we did put together additional renderings to try to understand and situate the building more in context. And really explain how the building has been tiered to kind of mirror the topography of the neighborhood, but really have a better capture of what certain views will look like from certain intersections surrounding the project. And then there were just questions that we were asked that we wanted to answer about, why this housing here. And I'll talk a little bit more about the Clemson Next white paper and where the site is situated. But at the end of the day, we are responding to a real need that we've seen where the university enrollment has grown over 25% in the last 10 years, and the unfortunate fact is that housing development just hasn't kept up with that. So we are proposing to concentrate this density here where it was called for, but also, balance the project of making sure it is integrated in the community while also still concentrating the density where it is most needed. There were also questions about retail, making sure that the retail space would be filled, and we've continued to talk to the city. We're aware of the bonding mechanisms that will be used, that we will be using in our PD to make sure that the 6,000 square feet of retail that we are proposing here is fully leased and is successful for the city and for the neighborhood. So just a little bit of context. I know I've spoken about this a few times to the Plan Commission, but just to situate where the site is and where it is in the Clemson Next white paper, we are really under that bubble 1, grow at the seams, which was really the area in Clemson Next that was designated for the higher density student housing development, but where a need for additional open space was called out, where there was a need for additional retail and additional pedestrian and bike connections to downtown and to campus. And we are aware that the Site 1, there were certain concept plans that were proposed for Tiger Park, which we feel this is as close as we could possibly be to Tiger Park, but didn't really think that was a feasible development site given the multitude of owners there. So just wanted to touch on that. And then here's where the site itself is situated, the northwest corner of Pine and Clemson Avenue, approximately a 10-minute walk to kind of the major nodes in campus and downtown. But with that, I will turn it over to the architecture team to introduce the project vision a little bit more for those of you who haven't heard it yet.
Good afternoon, my name is Lee Vavarutsos. I'm a principal with Lamar Johnson Collaborative, and I'd like to start by talking about our architectural approach for this project. So we really began by trying to gain an understanding of the community strategic initiatives, but also the character of this place. And then based on that, we started to identify constraints and opportunities for the site, and that resulted in these vision statements. The vision statements are kind of our North Star for the project, but they're not fixed. After coming to commission and hearing comments, We've already started to refine them, and then we check back with them as the project progresses, just to see if we did what we said we wanted to do. So the first of these statements is really that we wanted to determine an architectural character that's rooted in the place and really feels like it is born up of the natural landscape and drawing inspiration from the geology and topography of where the project is, not somewhere else and dropped into this place. The second idea was that, as Allison mentioned, understanding the white paper and the idea of growth and designated growth nodes, but really also thinking about how a space and a place adjacent to campus can also have public benefit and how that can be leveraged. Additionally, we wanted to make sure that the building design has its own architectural character, but also fits contextually, so that it's a cohesive part to both the neighborhood and the university itself. Those are more macro ideas, kind of large-scale ideas. Zooming in to the more human scale, we really wanted to prioritize the pedestrian experience and thinking about connection points for students and residences to the existing campus fabric. A little bit more of a abstract idea, but a very important one for us for this project was this idea of a social canopy. And it's something that is both physical but also experiential. So the idea that public and residents would have this protected space that's covered, green, and promotes interaction socially. And you'll see a physical example of that in a few moments. And so indoor-outdoor space, by relation, is very important to us on this project. And we've really tried to break down the boundaries and the divisions of that, again, because it's the nature of where this project is. And our final vision thought was that we really wanted the design to be environmentally responsible, but not just ecologically. Also from the standpoint of mental well-being and having a high quality of life for the people using the building and the people interacting with the building in some way. So those were the elements that are really driving the project design and also the plan.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Ben Brody. I'm an architect with LJC. I want to take you through the planning that we take from the vision statements as we begin to understand really how do you think and move through this space. So looking at the site plan, we have the project bounded by Clemson Avenue on the south, Pine Street to the east, and Hedgerow Lane to the north. And then there's a multifamily housing that's directly west of our site. And the building is organized around two courtyards. The north is a residential courtyard, and the south one would be that public courtyard. Understanding the site is Hedgerow Lane is 30 feet up, and as we work our way down to Clemson Avenue, and this corner at Clemson and Pine Street, we found this is a really important way to carve away the building and to create a covered, protected outdoor plaza to receive both the community and the neighborhood and draw you into a public park within that's bounded by, in red, the retail, and then in orange would be the residential lobby there. Additionally, we proposed a lay-by lane along Clemson Avenue as one way to provide both drop-off for retail as well as for residents, but also keep traffic along the more primary street of Clemson Avenue and not bringing traffic up Pine Street. So as we work up the building, the south half, there is residential units and amenity, and then the north half is the first level of parking. And you can see here the first segment of the parking garage is public parking, given back 30 spaces back, 31 spaces for public parking, and then as you move through there would be the residential parking. Moving up next level on the south half, again there's residential units. North half is the parking garage. We really want to be thoughtful about Pine Street and how it expresses itself in the neighborhood, so we lined Pine Street with units, working its way back and up. And then additionally, some of the feedback that we've heard and some of the iterations we've made is there used to be some parking along Hedgerow. We removed that and instead put a landscape buffer there to provide, again, setting the garage back from Hedgerow and bringing in landscape to provide a buffer between the building and Hedgerow and the to the north. Moving up there on the north, there is a residential interior courtyard that the building wraps around. Coming up to the next level on the south half, on the southeast corner, would be an amenity space and an amenity deck that is a way for the residents to connect back to the campus and use back south of the campus. And then additional 2 more levels above that. So I wanted to zoom in then to just thinking about site access and flow and then how we're trying to be intentional about where cars do go and where entry happens. So all the cars enter the garage off of Pine Street. You're about halfway up the site. And it's a left into the garage, and then coming out, as Allison mentioned before, we would do a right turn only to drive all traffic back towards Clemson, back towards 93, try to move as much cars as possible towards the primary arteries within Clemson.
So I'd like to talk about the project's concept and exterior design now. In learning a little bit more about this sense of place, our ideas kind of coalesced around this idea of Carolina clay. And that's not just come up with a slogan, but just something that our ideas were gathering around and were helping us make certain design decisions. So in this image, the bottom image has these horizontal striations and really takes this idea of layering, of vibrant color, and of a certain kind of material tone and natural feel that we very much wanted to play up on. And even in our earliest sketches, those ideas, as well as ideas about layering and stepping and carving, seem to go together to try to best integrate a building on this site in Clemson. So from an exterior design standpoint, this main view is at the corner of Clemson and Pine looking northwest. And I want to talk about those three ideas: stepping, layering, and carving. First of all, from a stepping standpoint, the building steps down from Hedgerow Lane to the north down to Clemson Avenue at the low point, and really just kind of follows the line of the land. From a layering standpoint, it works in a primary, or actually in 2 different directions. From a vertical direction, we have these inset recesses that are set distances along the elevation, all the way around the building. But on the Pine Street elevation, for example, you can see they become the place where you have balconies and outdoor space, and that those balconies are then also integrated into the building massing. From a horizontal layering standpoint, we've broken down the building into base, middle, and top with a natural kind of beige-ish brick, and then a reddish brick, and then a gray metal on top. And again, this is to try to break down the scale of the building and to kind of scale it down. Outdoor space is also important for the horizontal layering, and we have outdoor space right above the main corner in the view, which is outdoor for amenity space. And finally, we're also thinking about layering in the more detail level with the fenestration, because even though the planning dictates that the windows mostly align, in many cases, the articulation around the windows does not. We move it from side to side and try to create horizontal movement so that the facade isn't static, but again, thinking about scale and keeping your eye moving across surfaces. This is a view looking up Pine Street, and so here you can see the transparent residential entrance lobby, as well as the green improvements along the pedestrian way. And again, our attempt to kind of improve that area and make it more green and more scaled. But also on the building itself, you'll see around the windows the way we're introducing shading fins, as well as changes in brick plane, changes in bonding patterns. And what we're really trying to do here is create a sense of authenticity, materials that accrue shadow, avoid flatness, and really try to make it feel, again, scaled and more authentic than a lot of flattening construction. This is a view looking towards the corner of Clemson and Pine along the retail. You can see the transparent retail area and the outdoor space affiliated with it, with a nice landscape area stepping down to the lay-by lane. So earlier I had mentioned this idea of a social canopy, and this plan diagram really shows you what that's about. So the area in orange is a landscape terrace that brings you up towards both the residential and the retail main entries. It would be a green space, it would be a covered space, and then ultimately it leads you to the public courtyard beyond. So all this is public space, and it would be energized and activated by potential for dining and other programmed activities. This is a close-up view of that space where you can really see the terrace plaza. Again, you see the transparent dual entries and the courtyard beyond. And what we're trying to do here as that kind of social canopy is we're taking the building structure, we're abstracting the structure into tree-like elements, we're cladding them in wood. Obviously, we're going to do some research on what is the most appropriate kind of wood. Maybe it's pine, but the kind of wood you would see in Clemson or around Clemson. And we're also taking the soffit, and we think this is very important, we're making it into a very high polished surface that magnifies the presence of green and magnifies the presence of landscape and the feeling of trees as much as possible. It also kind of lightens up the whole area and makes it far more welcoming and facilitates a real connection between the public, sidewalk, the terrace plaza, and the courtyard. And this is the view from the public courtyard looking back towards the southeast, where you can see Memorial Stadium beyond. Now, we were asked to talk a little bit more about the building in context. And as Allison mentioned, it's very important to us that the building outwardly integrates with the context, but also is inwardly focused in terms of the life of the student. So this is the elevation along Pine Street looking towards the west. And what I want to point out here is that the building does step down precisely.
That's looking to the east, right?
No, that'd be
No,
west.
this is looking west.
Oh,
At the
looking
east-
west.
Yeah, at the east elevation. Sorry if I misspoke. So what I want to point out here is that on the north and south of the building, these are real trees. The building does not exceed the height of these trees, which are immediately adjacent to the building. And there is a pretty significant drop from the intersection of Folger and Pine, which we've heard is a very important, at least starting point. We want to consider the building from all locations, but we started with that location, and we do have the benefit of the elevation helping us, including a little bit of a rise from Folger to the south, and then the big drop towards Clemson Avenue. So again, this is where we're really trying to use stepping, layering, and carving to help break down the building both in length and in height from a scale and massing and material standpoint. So this is the view from Folger looking south along Pine, and you can see the extent of the building. Again, I'll keep saying this, but the building has no back. It's a 360-degree building. We're thinking about every facade as a main facade. Every facade has a particular presence and impact on the community, and we want to talk about all of those. This is a view looking south on Pine. We realized that the structure in the lower right corner is no longer there. It is now gone, but you can see the way that the building, again, on the very east elevation, the green and landscape improvements along the public way, and then the way that the layering occurs from base, middle, and top, the recesses and the material changes. At the base of the building is the place where the garage interfaces with the community, and we've wanted to pay special attention to that because we know that parking garages and communities need to be carefully dealt with. So in this view, what you see top and bottom, first of all, the top view is the area with the proposed trees as a buffer zone. But we wanted to show you the material and the facade without the trees as well, where we're showing the worst possible or the most possible amount of permeable material required, because we're really thinking about airflow for the garage, but we're also thinking about mitigation of headlights and light spillage into the community. So whether it's a 50% perforated metal, a 60%, we're not sure yet, but it's going to be something decorative. It's going to be something that relates to the overall building concept, not just picked up and dropped on there. And then additionally, we will have the tree buffer as well, along with fiber cement cladding. We're going to have as much opacity as we can, but we're showing you the most possible amount of metal that could be there ever. And this is an image from Oak Street looking due east. And on the left-hand side here is Hedgerow Lane. So again, you see the stepping and the layering. And once again, it's the same facade approach without back 360 degrees. So finally, this is the view from Oak and Clemson, looking almost due east. You can see again the stepping of the building, and it's kind of small in this image, but you see the carve out for the main entrance. So we're really trying to use the site topography along with layering and material changes to bring the building into context to the greatest extent possible. From a material standpoint, again, that first image of Carolina clay, we wanted to actually use clay brick. In natural tones is the main building material. There is also fiber cement panels on the building that would match the brick to the greatest extent possible. Those would be more secondary materials. The two images to the top are, on the top left is the top layer of the building, which is a gray metal, and the darker color would be more detailed window fenestration, window fins, etc. Again, we find that darker metal tends to blend things in more rather than stand out. The perforated metal I talked about in the garage, the wood I mentioned for columns, and the big image on the lower right corner is a real picture of a polished soffit that's reflecting an image below, which is what we proposed for the carved out landscape terrace. So all in all, we're really going for materials that feel normal to this place, natural to this place, a combination of new and old, and of modern and traditional.
All right, so I now want to touch on the landscape portion of it. And we're working closely with our internal landscape architects to understand this place and understand what the soils are, what the plants, what the native species are, looking at the Piedmont region where Clemson is located. And just wanting to explore ways that specifically, as you know, on the north side of our building, where we are going to be in shade and we're going to be shade tolerant, but we also want full growth, given that, so that it really is a landscape buffer along hedgerow. So thinking about.
Can you speak up a little bit, please?
Yeah, for sure,
thank you.
sorry. So I was just saying, at the, being really intentional about native species that grow well here in Clemson in this Piedmont zone, and looking specifically, especially on the north side of our building, which is going to be pretty much in shade the whole time, but also wanting to have full growth happening up there. So shade tolerant shrubs and small trees, and also low growth grasses and perennials, so that it really does create I think the quality of this neighborhood is, you've got the old growth trees, you've got the natural landscape that we can really connect back to, so we want to be really thoughtful about that.
So in summary, what we're really trying to do here is we're trying to embrace Clemson next, but we're also trying to address the idea of contextuality of a modern building of a particular use type. And we're trying to use those ideas along with texture and authenticity to create a human scale to something that is that doesn't always happen in buildings of this use type. And what our hopes is to create a project of architectural significance, possibly beauty, although that's subjective, but beauty that is not, feels like it's from somewhere else or belongs somewhere else, but rather is made of materiality and ideas that are Clemson specific. So that is our project, and thank you very much for your time.
So do any of the commissioners have any questions, comments at this point? Commissioner Crowley?
Yeah, just a couple quick ones. The 31 public parking spaces, does that, are those dedicated visitor parking, residential visitors, people coming to visit people in the building, is that included in that 31, or do you guys have separate?
That's
Dedicated,
separate.
you guys do have dedicated separate?
Yeah, so we have the 31 spaces are public, open parking spaces.
Okay, and how many visitor spots do you guys plan on having?
We haven't, there's 353 spaces in the garage right now. The
Okay.
first 31 are public, and then beyond that is residential.
Okay, but you will have dedicated residential visitors?
Yeah, there'll be some for staff too, for those.
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out, is
Yeah.
if that was
We
all
can-
like lumped together with that 31, if
It's
it's
lumped
like
in.
people working, this, that, and the other, but you're saying this is dedicated public visiting for retail or the plaza,
Correct.
but okay.
Yes, yes. We can do a breakout of the 353 that are, or 333 that are remaining.
Okay. And the other quick one would be just, I know originally there was the parking along Hedgerow, but I also noticed it looked like a sidewalk because it was the same coloring, but I think along the back, that's actually Hedgerow Lane, the road in the picture, and was just curious, of the decision of not to put a sidewalk back there if all three facades were being treated as front-facing. And I know from a foot traffic standpoint, there's ways around, but the reason why there wouldn't be a sidewalk back there.
Yeah, so that is just the road on Hedgerow. We had originally had the public parking
Right.
connected to that, and we added the landscape buffer. I think that is something we can look at, doing a sidewalk on Hedgerow.
I just didn't know if there was a reason, if you guys had thought about foot traffic and trying to push, if there was, I know it can be worked out later. I just didn't know if you guys, oh yeah, we thought about X, Y, Z, and that's why we decided not to include it, or if it was just, this is kind of just the way it's turned out.
Yeah, the only reason is just we go halfway down Hedgerow, and then the Oak Street
Okay.
apartments are there, so we couldn't theoretically connect all the way to Oak with a sidewalk, because
Okay.
their property goes up to Hedgerow.
Is there any exits on the back of the building for the residents? There's no,
No.
One on that back corner.
I was gonna say, I thought I
It's
saw
just a
like
fire stair egress.
fire stair.
emergency.
Okay, so then that's like, that's like alarmed and,
Alarms off, and then it's,
okay, so nobody will be coming, okay, so then you probably wouldn't need one, okay.
yeah.
That answers it, thank you.
Is the public parking not city dedicated, or is it just whoever's, like some of the other ones?
Is it gonna be metered, is it gonna be metered and city take care of it?
The
or-
city gets to use it as they see fit, or is this just general public parking?
Just
for-
general public parking. I mean, I'm speaking totally off the cuff here, but I probably would not include a meter in this garage for that public parking. If we need, well, in my brain, good question, in my brain, I was thinking the cost of a meter, times the number of spaces, but, then I immediately regretted saying that and thought I do need a way to meter, because we do have a 2-hour parking limit, in public spaces, so I would probably we would do that and then use our typical enforcement to police that.
That would mean our enforcement has to go down that, they're not currently going down that street for anything other
They're
than.
not currently, but we're,
Violations.
that process of staffing up is in the forefront of our mind. We know it's, currently we don't go any further really than,
If the city doesn't monitor it, then.
Yeah.
I'm assuming what John's getting at about the resident visitor stuff is those people would just park.
Right, people could leave car, hey, you got a boat, throw it in this visitor spot, it can stay here forever, or, I mean, the boat was probably a stretch, but if somebody came over, you could do overnight parking and stuff, and then that gets filled up, and then there's nothing
no,
available.
we're totally aware that we're gonna have to expand there and then expand both the number of staff people and the territory that we're looking at.
There's no issue on your side, right?
No,
You don't care.
we're showing a gate to access control the beyond the residential, or from the public parking to residential, and so we would lease the individual spaces to tenants who are bringing a car. So it should be very separate from the residential use.
I guess the main issue that is, somebody had mentioned a interesting math kind of thing to me about if you're gonna have 700 kids there and say 10% have significant others that don't live there, then that's 70 people. I know some will go visit over there, but some will come over, so it starts to add up quick, and if we can encourage public transit stuff, that's great. But that's why I was curious about how many dedicated resident visitor spots you have, because that starts to eat into the viability of until we get better connected, the viability of people getting over there and using those businesses and things like that.
Yeah, understood.
Any other questions, Commissioner Yoder? Comments, thoughts,
Yeah, I just,
considerations?
some of this might have been at the last meeting, and I just don't remember it. So there are existing student housing there now. Some of that student housing is not going to be removed as part of this project at this moment, right? But it's still part of the property.
201 and 203 Pine Street are the two addresses versus there's the 3-story existing
For
student
300?
housing. That's all.
Yes, 300 North Clemson is the other, it's not that whole, it's just, if you pull up the tax map, it's not the whole building. These are individually owned, and I'm sorry, I apologize for anybody that can't see what I'm pointing at, but it's a tax map. There's if you look at the dotted line right there that runs through right there, that's its individual parcel, and that's included in this, so this will stay what it is, and that one parcel will get rezoned.
He's talking about 300
Yes, that is,
North Clemson.
that is a correct summary. 300 North Clemson
Yeah.
stays. Yeah.
Do you have that where you can show
Yeah, I'd love to
what
see
you're
it.
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah, and go back to the overall.
Yeah,
you
you
can
can see it right there.
Yeah.
The red triangle that's, doesn't have any part of the development on it.
From Clemson Avenue to Hedgerow, 30 feet, grade elevation change, right?
Yeah, 30 to 35.
Hedgerow to Folger, plus or minus 20, correct? So from Folger, it's 5 levels of, basically you see from Folger, I guess, 5 levels of residence, right? The parking deck is the first 2 stories above grade at Hedgerow, and then it's 5 levels of residence there. So it's trying to make sure everybody here and outside understands that what we're looking at from a height level, which is basically 5 levels above Folger, compared to what's there now, if anybody wants to look at it. And then the buffer, so the buffer on the backside, if you go back to one of the first levels, just to make sure that, so there's the landscape buffer, but the units stay over the landscape buffer, right? So they basically are all the way to the property line, right?
Yeah, the units are over the parking garage. So either the parking garage is buffered, so we're protecting from headlights really, into the neighborhood, and then it's just units, residential window patterning above that.
So, just to add feedback on the plantings, you're talking about plantings on the north side, the shady side, under an overhang, will get absolutely no sun whatsoever. There's not a plant that I am aware of that is living that will actually stay foliated in a situation like that. Even full shade plants still like sun to some aspect, and that will not get any. So I don't see that being successful. They could possibly do a vine or something that are more shade tolerant, but the success rate of those plants and the foliage density of those plants are gonna be so low that it's not actually going to do what they think it's gonna do.
Well, the buffer for the residents is really across the street, right? It starts after you go on the other side of Hedgerow with the existing trees and whatever is there now. That's the only buffer that's there. We're not really creating a buffer with this.
Yeah. I mean, they would be more successful putting a fake vine on it.
Could you put a
Luckily, that's
buffer?
in your purview, not mine.
And we'll get there in a minute. Would you hold on to
Yeah,
that
sorry.
thought? No, it's not to be sorry about it. I mean, it's great stuff. I mean, that's real life.
Yeah.
And I just want to see the rest of the comments, and then I really want to hear.
Have you gotten, so do we have a bedroom mix? Yeah, have we gotten that far? Do we know what the bedroom mix at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6?
It's a mix of studios through 5s.
Through 5s. So 1 through 5s. Do you have a count? I think you do, but I don't remember what it was. Do you know what the count is? Do you
It's
know?
723 total beds. I don't have a breakdown in front of me.
And we are removing,
99.
I have a question. Where's the crosswalk? How are these students gonna get to campus? Because I know that might not be something that you can control, but they're gonna run right across the highway. That's what they do now, because we're right down the street. How do they get across to the university?
Yeah, probably at one of the signaled intersections.
They're not gonna
was
do
that a
that.
crosswalk right there that crosses Pine, right there at the corner of North Clemson and Pine?
I mean, I don't know that there's one built in, but there's
I
not.
don't think there's.
I think the
one that-
bigger concern is where they're gonna coming across 93 is what she's getting at.
That's what my
They're gonna
concern
cut the
is.
catty corner, as soon as it comes out next to Tiger Park, they're gonna cut catty corner towards campus instead of walking up and hitting the stoplight and hit the crosswalk.
You have to either go up to Abernathy to where the Abernathy
Right.
is, or
down.
Down,
back.
that's-
Yeah.
I don't know.
I-
I don't know what we do about that, 93.
Yeah, I don't either, but
That portion of 93 is owned by the university, so, I can bring it up, but that's,
You just get somebody
So
to run over and let it
That's all I can
inside.
tell you right now.
So even the sidewalk and everything on that, like where does the city take over adjacent to 93?
that portion of 93 is all university. You're saying.
Like, so I'm saying, like, is it 5 feet off that, like, is it the sidewalk, 5 feet off the sidewalk?
Back at sidewalk, I think.
Back, okay.
But don't.
I just didn't know if it was,
I-
like, oh yeah, the sidewalks are ours, the roads are theirs, or basically sidewalks over is the general rule for theirs.
I'd have to have a tax map in front of me, but yeah.
There's actually a whole lot of complication to that, because how the state abandoned the right-of-way to the university was done in a way that it wasn't very clear as to if it was just a lane of travel or if it was the entire right-of-way. So it's being worked out between the lawyers right now, but all of 93 is getting cleaned up right now, who owns exactly what. If any of it's owned by the state, if it gets reverted back to the property owners, or if it's owned by the university. But they've been working on it for a couple of years and getting it all cleaned out.
Can I add one thing to that? We have a drain system right out there, just to say this, and nobody will take fault for that drain system backing up. So University, South Clemson, Tennessee, DOT, all of them. Nobody takes, finally, I got Clemson University Police Department to send me somebody out there to look at it. But nobody will take, ownership of it.
It's looking like the university is going to ultimately get ownership of the entire previous DOT right-of-way, which would include the sidewalk.
Can I ask 2 more?
Sure,
So,
that's what this is.
do we have a entry exit? I know we're coming on Pine Street, that's the only access to it. I assume I can't make it one way, really. I guess you could coming out of the parking deck, but, so the planned exit and entry is from both sides, right? So you could come from Folger down Pine and enter into, or you could come from North Clemson Avenue and enter?
You could make it, what we've talked about previously, you could keep it 2-way on Pine in order to get into the garage and obviously get into the homes across the street on Pine, and then 1-way from Folger, 1-way south from Folger to Pine. That way somebody on Pine couldn't turn left.
Okay, so
Into
that
the
would be the
permit.
plan, from an exit standpoint, out of the parking deck would be to make, no, you want,
Out of the parking, it is a right turn only.
right turn on, okay.
That's why we have that, I call it a pork chop because it's
Yeah,
kind of
yep.
shaped like that, but the curved lane, so you can't, it's a pain to turn left, but it would, I think,
Sure.
1-waying from Folger to Pine would then emphasize again.
Do you mean Folger to Hedgerow? Because Folger
Folger
intersects.
to Hedgerow.
Sorry, okay, I was just saying, because Folger, I was like, Pine intersects
Pine
Folger, so,
from-
okay.
Yes,
All right.
thank you, Pine from Folger to Hedgerow.
I don't know that we have a whole lot of control over what the existing street traffic flow is, but definitely coming out of it.
Yeah.
Would be able to dictate the right turn. Okay.
Commissioner Cumming?
two comments. One on that backside of hedgerow, I know we were addressing this earlier, but the buffer that's on that other side of hedgerow, because I walk through there all the time, is not, it's maybe more than halfway down the property side where those big trees are that we saw in the picture. So concerned about that buffer, but then to Commissioner Hyde's point is the sidewalk. And even between the property and getting to 93, it's not the best sidewalks along Pine. I mean, Pine, not Pine. Yeah, Pine when you go beside Tiger Park, not the best pedestrian-friendly area. Oak's a little better, but it's pretty narrow when you get along Tiger Park. So my concern is traffic between there, pedestrian traffic between there and then obviously crossing 93 is I don't know how that's going to work, but those are my two major concerns.
Yeah, I just don't know, and maybe this has nothing to do with planning commission, but I don't know how those students are gonna get to campus, because they're just gonna run across 93. But, what is this right now, RM4? The zoning? RM4? Okay.
It's, well, RM4 and RM3, if you count the little triangle as RM3.
Okay, all right.
Yes, I have the same concerns about that, and I know if anybody wants to endeavor that, Friday about 6:30, if you want to try to walk in front of Tiger Park and see how how it is, you kind of taking your life into your own hands there. But also my biggest concern would be the construction, because I would really worry about, with it being lot line to lot line, I believe it may be a couple feet. The effects of whether hedgerow and pine and possibly even North Clemson in that area would have to be closed, because there are residents there, how that would affect them for approximately 2 years.
Yeah.
We're kind of dealing with that downtown right now. I don't know how you actually, if you're using just that lot, how you get material siding on the side of the building. Without closing the road down, that would be the only way for that.
Yeah, and we can work with we've been talking to a few general contractors about this too, but any closure of the right of way is something that would have to get approved. It's not something that we're going in assuming can be done.
Yeah. But no, just kind of seeing this presentation and going through it today, there'll be some other things I'll probably come up with later on, but that's kind of my concern, as well as I think probably the number one thing is going to be the height there at the neighborhood, compared to what's there now, that we have to take into effect that's people's homes that they've lived there for years and years, and you're putting 7 stories right there, and it's approximately 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 residential homes. I'm not sure if those are true residential or rental units or not. I'd have to look into that further, but that's kind of course, going to be a big concern.
Any other planning commission questions, comments right now? Concern? Okay. Guys, who wants to start? Okay.
Go ahead.
Not else.
Well, first of all, I commend you on the presentation. I thought it was very thorough. It's one of the better ones I've seen for the PDs coming through here. And I think the sensitivity of material selections seems to be appropriate. I'm curious as how much of it is the cementitious panel and how much of it is the brick. And it's not clear to me exactly where that is.
You want me to go ahead and clarify that?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
And if y'all could speak up a little bit, because the microphone needs to be able to catch here. I know that's kind of crazy, but
So the, sorry, I'm going the wrong direction. So the brick, let's talk about the red brick first. The red brick, if I go to the overall view here, the red brick is all of the Pine Street facade,
Okay.
all of the Clemson facade, and then turns and runs north along the Oak Street facade until the building bumps way out to the west. That's where it converts to fiber cement, continues along, I'll show you on the plan as well, continues north to the north elevation, and then almost all of the north elevation is fiber cement. And it transitions at the corner, right where you can see the garage beginning. You can see the brick to fiber cement transition in this image. The darker material is the fiber cement.
Is the darker is fiber cement?
Yes, the darker is the fiber cement.
So I'm reading it exactly out.
The darker is the fiber cement.
So-
So the fiber cement exists on a majority of the north elevation and about 40% of the west elevation.
And the pattern of the fiber cement is the grid lines or the score lines on the fiber cement match the dimension of the brick? Is that what you're suggesting?
No,
I
the
didn't
fiber
know.
cement panel size won't match the size of the brick.
Okay, that's
But the
what I was-
patterning will. It'll be a running bond. It'll be a combination of colors that will be, honestly, we'll probably select the fiber cement first because the brick can be more easily matched to available fiber cement colors and vice versa. We're gonna try to make them as similar as possible. The scale can never be the same. We know that.
I understand. Okay, that's what I was curious about, because it looks like you sized it on the drawing, on the samples.
No, the sizing is real, depending on a couple of manufacturers that we checked at some of their smallest sizes. We're trying to go the smallest size that they can still be cut from one panel efficiently.
And what's the facade of the courtyards? The interior facade?
Fiber cement.
That's all fiber cement?
Yes.
So you've already valued engineered that into the courtyards, okay. Any chance of getting brick all the way around the building in the budget?
I'm not sure. That's the courtyard.
Because I'm a little just concerned about the transition of those two materials, even though I understand you're trying to match the colors. But it's overall, I mean, you've done a good job breaking down the scale of what is a very large building, in my opinion, and both vertically and horizontally. And so, you know, I think you've done a fairly decent job there. The one of the major concerns I have about your plant materials is North Clemson Boulevard is a feature street in this city, and what makes it a feature street is the tree canopy. And so it stops at kind of this point, right, already. But this is a chance to continue the character of North Clemson Boulevard further down the street by, if you were to put actual shade trees along, street trees along the North Clemson Boulevard facade of this building, which also being a southern exposure would help make that a much more protected public space along the street.
So left side of this image continuing on more towards the corner.
Yeah, I would say, because it looks like you have enough setback from the street that you could work in street trees into that area there.
And just for
And
clarity too, we turned off the street trees actually both on Clemson.
you want to
and
show your
and,
building?
Well,
But I don't see them even in the material, in the plant material category, so I don't see shade trees. I mean, I see magnolia is the largest tree here.
We don't have any trees listed.
Yeah, so I would love to see you match the species of street trees that coming down North Clemson Boulevard. And I think it would actually help your project, help the habitability of that public space under there. And it would certainly help continue the character of North Clemson Boulevard further down the street. And help break down the scale of the building even further. So, I mean, that's my concern. I think Nathan brought up the planting on the north side. I would love to find a north side planting that works.
There's some small shrubs, but to get mass there, you're not gonna find many trees to do that.
But I think, the other thing that I guess I have a concern with is the only way to make the retail viable there is to really make the parking for the retail viable there. And I share some of the concerns about how you manage that public parking in order to do that, because there's no public parking on North Clemson Boulevard at that point. There's no public parking anywhere near there. And so that has to be managed somehow. And when you get to the parking garage level, if you bring up that plan, where is the gate between the public and the?
After the 31 spaces.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out, is how that works.
The back one.
Go back 2, 3. Yeah, it's kind of hidden there, but where the dark.
Where the dark gray is, so if I look at the plan, then there is a place to actually have a functioning gate where someone can actually make a 3-point turn and get back out of the public parking. So that's critical, because, someone comes in, they don't know whether all the spaces are taken, they find out the spaces are taken. And I had this conversation on the last project. And then someone pulls in behind them, and it's a real logistical problem. Right, so as long as you can make a 3-point turn at the end of that public parking before the gate, then I think that's really important. And somehow, either the city or someone's gonna have to manage that parking. Because otherwise, you can have the bond for the retail, but if people can't park there, they're not gonna use that retail. The other thing, and this is really outside the purview of the BAR, but, and this is something maybe the city needs to consider, is some kind of rent adjusted rates on that retail, so that you can actually encourage something other than large chains to rent in there. I mean, if we can stimulate small, locally owned business owners with a more greater variety of whatever that retail is, that would be something to think about. But overall, I think, and the other thing is the private courtyard. It seems to me that would be the place to put some balconies to activate that courtyard internally. And so if you're trying to add balcony, or you're taking them off of hedgerow,
That's correct.
then maybe you put them on the units facing into the courtyard, because that's going to actually make that space lively, right? If it's a dead facade with no ability to have action from the units, they would make that resident courtyard a little bit more active. But overall, I think it's a relatively well done project and presentation. I wish some of the others were as good as this promises to be. So,
Okay, so I'll go next. Wondering how you get from your public parking to the retail, mixed-use, public courtyard. Like, is it a hallway? Is it how do you get from there to there?
There's an elevator from the public spaces to the courtyard. It's accessible to the public parking.
Oh, so you have to go down the elevators to get
Because
down?
of the tiering of the site.
Okay. Right, no, I understand that. I just didn't realize you had to go down elevators. Okay. On the plantings, y'all are dealing with, in all 4 areas technically. So let's, under the breezeway, or under the, big cantilever section, that you're taking full sun, very reflective, very hot area. So that's sort of a very specific, kind of microclimate there. Then you're going into the public park, which is, half of it's gonna be in shade. That's gonna be a very, it's very deep. You have 4 stories, 5 stories all the way around it. So half of that park is gonna be in shade. At least it'll get some light, but you have to realize that. You're also gonna get reflection off of the windows in the building that are going to, I know it sounds crazy, but you will fry some of your plants just due to the reflection off a lot of the glass in the building. It would be good to have some good sized street trees along North Clemson. Even having street trees around, I know you show street trees on Pine Street, but you're talking about a very narrow, you have 5 feet and then you have 5 feet or maybe 7 feet to your building front. So, it's gonna be a lot of probably silvacells underneath the sidewalks to make sure they are like viable. They get water, they don't heave up all the sidewalks, all of that. The maintenance in this place is gonna be probably atrocious because all of your public areas are so many levels. It looks like an origami session gone wrong on these public parks. Just please make sure that it's not an exercise of design, but it's actually usable, functional, inviting space, because this doesn't need to be, and even though it's within a building, it still needs to be publicly friendly. You're not gonna get masses and masses of people coming through here. If people wanna enjoy this space, you need to have comfortable areas. I don't know if it was a representation of mountain ranges or what led to all of the angles, but it just looks uncomfortable, just looking at it. And then with the residential plaza or park as well, half of that's gonna be in shade. So you're gonna have to be careful there. And then you're really, I don't know what you're gonna do on that north side, but showing trees there, I think, is a misrepresentation of its success. So, I do applaud. I do have something good to say. I do applaud. You do show a lot of diversity in the plant selections. A lot of them are atypical. I think some of them are a little misleading as far as what they're shown, but I do look forward to seeing how it comes along. But your LA has some challenges.
Like this, appreciate the comments. We certainly have not.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Of course.
I just want to make sure.
Appreciate the comments. We certainly have not completely, fully baked the landscape, but we are a firm that has landscape architecture in-house, and so those guys yell at us all the time. They will continue to yell at us, and we are dedicated to get it right. And also to learn, we understand that landscape here, there, and everywhere else is all different, so we will get it right for what's here. So, thank you for the comments.
I'd like to go next. I do commend you on this backside on Hedgerow, because if you've driven around town, we've got some big parking decks that face residential neighborhoods, and they are very insensitive, so I commend you on that fact. That's nice. I know there's a lot of give and take in PDs. You give a little to the city, they give you a little more. So my question, as far as Nathan's comments, that those trees won't grow where you've got them along Hedgerow, would you be willing to work with the neighborhood and pay for planting on their property as a buffer? That's a PD question, okay?
On the north side of Hedgerow?
Yeah, on the north side on the private property. So
Well,
that's-
how much of the right-of-way exists beyond the edge of paving too, because it may actually be on the city.
Well, I don't know, that's a good
it's
question, but,
My understanding of hedgerow is it's about, I think it was 16 feet wide right away.
Oh, so it's just a paved lane.
It's not much.
but, you know, in order to make a buffer of some sort of vegetation that will work and give the residents some, you know, privacy there. I used to know people that live in this neighborhood. I don't anymore, but I'm just speaking generally. The other thing I'd like to see is, you know, I know you can do this with modeling. We've got a very tall building on, as it gets to Hedgerow, it's really tall. If you can do in the next meeting, the massing model and show us the summer shadow on their property and the winter shadow. So we really know how it's going to affect them. And it looks like on this map, that one house is gone and the rest of these are just deep backyards. But I think we owe it to the residents to kind of acknowledge what's going to happen here if it is approved. The other question I have is, we've seen some developers come in that actually, they fund a coffee shop, they fund a retail, maybe it's a smaller pizza place or whatever.
We don't need another pizza place.
Whatever.
International food restaurant would be.
Yeah, a Thai restaurant. Is your developer going to support something like that? Because we have a lot of empty retail right now. We've had it for years, but I think that makes a project more viable.
Yeah,
I was going to say, can I speak to that? The ordinance has been passed, and it's been passed by City Council, and it's been included in every PD ordinance, since it's going to be its own ordinance, is basically 150% of the average build-out is what they have to bond out, and it can be called within, what is it?
2 weeks short of 2 years.
Yeah, 2 weeks within 2 years. And then that money would go in a fund to subsidize if it was not leased out by that time. Additionally, at that point in time, that is something that we could ask them to consider, or Nathan, the city could ask them to consider. But that has now gone into effect. So the first PD ordinance that it was put into is the last recent one at 398, and we foresee that continued throughout any of them because it is the ordinance for the city now. And so while it can't make up in the past, there is a huge incentive for them to do that. And at that point, it would be up to them to consider, are they going to do subsidized rent and things like that at that point in order to get their money.
Okay, good. I do think, I know you said you had street trees that you turn off on the front, and if you could turn them on for the next meeting. Sure. And keep them turned off too, but give us two views on
We
and
also
off.
acknowledge that those still don't quite address the first comment about continuing the trees to the street.
Sure.
Those are shade, there's a continuous canopy of shade down North Clemson Avenue up until this point, just about. And so that means frequency of trees, the size of the trees, the species of the trees. And so, yeah.
That's really all I have. Thank you. Good presentation.
Sure.
There are a lot of things I like about it. I like considering the mass of the building as a whole. I think there are a lot of good moves to break it up. I still want to go back to the hedgerow side. That internal courtyard's pretty large. This is all up against the property line. Every time a large building is juxtaposed to residential, it concerns me. And I don't want to just automatically resign myself to it has to be that tall. What, straight zoning wise, how high could it go in this location?
40 feet.
Okay, so I don't want that to be an automatic, it's a PD, so let's go high. Like, I still think there's some sensitivity that can be given over to the massing of the building in actual massing size, not aesthetically, to how it juxtaposes to the residential neighborhood behind. That's my biggest concern. I just think about that corner at Pine and Hedgerow. I mean, that's a 7-story building right up on a really small street, and it just, that concerns me, and I think it warrants a little more investigation and consideration. But also, and then utilities too, that was brought up, like, in terms of like utilities, underground, like what, so, those were my 2 things.
You have underground utilities?
Well, there's a lot of existing power lines down Hedgerow. Are they all,
The power lines are currently above ground,
Yes.
so
Something we would typically work with the utility companies on. If, I don't know where that overhead line terminates, but typically we would be undergrounding utilities that wrap our building.
Cross your building.
Yeah.
And I would like to just go on record and say, this has probably been, you showcase more sensitivity and intentionality in design than I've seen in a lot of buildings that have come before us. So I do appreciate the material selection, the way it's, there are a lot of things about it that are way more sophisticated than what we've seen in the past, so I do appreciate that.
Mr. Maskett?
Actually, I'm good. The only thing, I'd like to say, thank you for putting a little, I guess, the parking area in front where you can drop off like Uber Eats. And I'd like to see every PD have one of those around it, because the use of like DoorDash and Uber Eats and those rideshare programs have gone up. I've been really prevalent with the college kids these days. And we have a problem like on Earl Street and around like downtown where cars are just parking on the side of the roads and blocking traffic. So having that there is real good.
Thank you. No, I just, as I look at it, I think the thing that kind of stands out that was mentioned for students accessing campus, how you might address that and bring safety to their movement. Because if you have like 723, you have a lot more students moving by foot from this area, so.
Is there any way you can negotiate with the university if they're the ones that control that? I mean.
Yes.
Yep. Their crosswalk, you know, they have the crosswalk now there by the stadium with the flashing lights, even though it's not a traffic light.
I think it's a good conversation to have, absolutely.
You can have a pedestrian-only crosswalk at that point.
look at it as traffic calming.
Yeah.
Well, that's where the guy was killed, was right there.
Irrespective of this development, I think that's a good
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
This is real close to where the guy was.
Yeah. So,
So I do have a question. How many, if you were to take off on the Hedgerow side, if you were to remove and basically take off, it looked like, I counted, I think, 40 windows per story facing Hedgerow. Is that, so that's 40 bedrooms, 40 apartments? Is that, are there 2 windows per apartment? Like, the question would be, if you took 2 stories, 3 stories, something, because, I mean, technically that should be 40 feet there. Allowing more height deeper in the core of the site, but that section, sliding it back one section, I guess that would be, you know, I know every room is money and it's all about how many you can fit in a square foot, but just in that, because I mean, 7 stories right against an alley, backing up against a neighborhood, that's a lot. So I guess my comment more to the planning commission is that's a lot to give up, you know, for a PD, and it may be an easy, you know, ask.
can you go back to the section? site section.
Or is
The
it-
problem they've got is a life safety one. The donut shape of the floor plates allows them to exit multiple in two directions. So, so if you go to the floor plan, because they have a donut shaped floor plate, they can exit in two directions. So that in the case of a fire, that's a fundamental life safety concern in the building. So
But
you
that
cut
doesn't-
off that and you lose that ability to do that.
So you have one corner facing, like, you have the corner that farthest, maybe you have a, you know, parapet or something that accommodates that.
I'd have to put another fire stair in.
But I would just say it's, I don't know, that's a lot.
Go to the site section again. Show the trees.
It just seems more sensitive on the Tiger Park section versus the residential. And I would like to see more sensitivity on the
Or maybe
residential.
switch it around, so that the elevation is where the landscape is lowest.
The challenge is also the construction type, so we're limited to 5 floors of wood construction, so we actually can't go taller on the Tiger Park side because that's 5 floors of wood.
Can you go to the view that is showing like when you're standing on Folger looking out that way? So I guess I'm just trying to imagine in my mind, if you did go down 2 stories, you'd still be seeing the other taller section beyond it.
You would. But
And the change in materials to the dark gray helps break down the scale too. You might actually look at bringing the dark gray metal down one more floor so that the brick
Disappears.
Yeah, actually reads at that elevation, and that could help you as well. I don't know how proportionally on the building, but that might help you with that.
I just know that I'm thankful that on Knox Lane, walking down Knox Lane 2 stories is a very different experience, no matter what the material is, than 5, 6, 7. Like this is where people live day in and day out, both the future residents here and the people who already occupy the private property.
I just came from, I spent some time in Pamplona. They have 5 and 7 story buildings on very narrow streets. So you go to Florence, Italy, you go to Pamplona, you go to any Italian hill town. You've got buildings of that height.
But that's in an urban environment.
It is.
This is not next to a semi-rural neighborhood.
That's why I keep on going back to that section.
So
Let's kind of get back on track here a little bit. I understand your concerns. I think those were expressed as well at the last meeting, some of the concerns about that. We want to make sure as we're looking that we're giving them some of the feedback. I think you've heard that. Is there any other feedback beyond that? And so, commissioners, any other thoughts that you've had here?
No, I guess you had mentioned about the 5 stories, because that's wood, as tall as you can go with wood, but you could go higher with metal.
Financially, the cost would be infeasible for the project. It's just a more expensive construction type.
And there's a smaller public courtyard, and then the donut that somebody mentioned, the middle of that is a courtyard for residents.
Correct. That's on an upper level.
And is that a swimming pool, or, because it looks like one picture there might be a swimming pool, and then another picture it looks like a forest or something, so.
Yeah, we haven't really designed that interior courtyard for the residential amenity at this point, but it's a typical landscape area.
I didn't know if that amenity for the students could be smaller or narrower, to back off a little bit from Hedgerow Lane.
I would echo that would be something to consider.
And just, this feels like a lot to me, you know, just when I'm looking at this, knowing what is around. And then I know that it's near the university, but it's not next to the road, or, you know, it's still kind of tucked behind the Tiger Walk area. And it just seems like a lot right next to a neighborhood that's not on the main corridor. So
Yeah, one thing I was thinking about as well, and I know the feasibility of it's pretty small, but, you know, just thinking in advance that some years ahead of us that Tiger Park is bought and developed, all the views that we're highlighting on this, that goes away. To where you have possibly a 7-story building standing there. So that's just something to think about down the road that's on my mind as well with the height of this building. But I think that's all I got for tonight.
Mr. Crowley?
There's a couple of things I've got to, I guess, get worked out in my head, but I echo a lot of the concerns, the height back there, butting right up against it. Like you said, if it was right on 93 and the residential neighborhood backed up to it that close, that'd be a different story. But it's basically, we have the buffer on the bottom, the building still hangs over right basically to the property line on Hedgerow, so the only buffer that you actually have is part of the residential neighborhood across the street, which is not a lot. I mean, that's, you know, somebody decided to tear it. If something happens in one of those houses and they decide they want to build further back or something, you know, that limits that use of property, which is a concern. There's a couple other things I think I need to sort out that I'll probably bring up at the next meeting, but it's not a design issue or anything.
Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
For your next meeting, on this drawing, I would enlarge the site plan to just touch the back of those houses so we can see what the shadow is going to do. I think that would be helpful.
A massing model with a larger context would help you maybe. I mean, it'd be really interesting for us to be able to see how many actual residences are there, and in fact, how many of them are private residences and how much is rental housing.
I mean, just looking at the lot lines, it looks like 3 lots, 3 residential lots back up to it.
This one is a big house.
They still have their.
So any other comments? So I think one of the things that I continue to hear, and I know you mentioned at the beginning, is pedestrian safety. And I think we heard that at the last time too. I think, you know, some of the comments about the buffer make a ton of sense now that you say that. But I do understand I think we need to define the difference between a buffer for what? I mean, like what you were saying is it's really headlights and things like that, which is important about the lighting and things like that too. As we look at that, I appreciate y'all continuing to look at some of the issues. I was going back through my notes to make sure of all the things that we had heard when you summarize those today. You know, again, appreciate y'all being willing to go back and look at that traffic. I think that's a major key point, particularly during this time of year. Again, you addressed that. I think what I heard from everybody here was some of the concerns in the widths of sidewalks and things like that, walkability and safety on that natural corridor and things like that. Again, I think some of the things with the planning department to talk through is some of the site management plans and how that's going to work. And doing that, I think, is very valid concerns because, you know, with pictures today, they show up on the internet real quick, and we've already seen people during the first few weeks going straight across that street, even though that's not land use in our purview. Appreciate y'all considering that and the planning staff to be able to go and look at that with the university. We've already seen that show up on social media this year in that spot. You know, again, making sure, I think some of my big concerns, but y'all said y'all are working on it, so I trust everybody's working on it. It's with the utilities and infrastructure and things in that area are huge. And, you know, when we're doing things as the town grows, we have to be sure it's the capacity to be able to handle it. I think the businesses have said that, you know, it's a huge issue. And Jacob, I appreciate the clarity tonight to understand of what's going on, who has what, who's responsible for what, which isn't y'all's problem, but I just wanted to tell him I appreciate that as well. So were you able to gain anything, or is there anything y'all need clarity on in here? Does this help?
Yeah, I think this was really helpful. I've got a lot of really good suggestions for us to study, so appreciate that.
I did just one more thing. I thought if you guys could prepare, because we had we just had the other PD come through, and there was a big deal made about the public benefit that the city would receive from that project, so the trade-off there. And it would be helpful if we could get that specifically outlined at the next meeting, because right now the only thing, other than just the visual improvements and utilities, is the 31 parking spaces is the only thing I'm calling off the top of my head right now.
Yeah, so I think we can definitely have a slide or multiple slides to talk to all the benefits. I think it's the public park space, it's the retail, it's the 31 public spaces, it's the infrastructure improvements that we'll continue to explore, it's the sidewalk and crosswalk improvements that we'd really like to be able to do. So I think we can.
Okay. Yeah, because we were able to put some financial numbers on the other, and I don't really want to drag that one into this one, but you know, but it was helpful to say like, okay, here's some concrete that we're getting out of this for allowing this extra variation.
Yeah, understood.
So I appreciate y'all making the trip here. And then I think now it's time for staff to go back. Jacob and Nathan and Art, y'all got enough from here to be able to continue conversations in the direction to go? That's a yes?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just checking. I just want to make sure everybody hears that we're going down the path. Thank y'all so much for being here and your comments. And thank y'all for your travel. Thank you for this workshop, and look forward to what's to come as you make these considerations. So with that, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
All in favor, right hand? Okay, we're out.
Thank you.